Lane Hutson continues to accumulate points, break records, and carry Montreal closer and closer to a playoff spot.
And Hutson will skate it out. Here comes Lane Hutson. Hits the Sabres line. Hutson feeds it across. Scores!
In this video, we're going to break down most shifts from his first game against the Florida Panthers recently, one of his best overall performances of the season, and look at his development, how he handled the tough assignments that he's receiving, and how he manages to thrive in those minutes.
He got held there. He's looking back at the official now. The Canadians are on the power play.
The first clip won't convince anyone that Hutson is not turnover prone, but that's just a timing mistake that Nick Suzuki promptly corrects. We see the real Hutson 20 seconds later. Head up, he accelerates, evades a poke check with a 10-2 maneuver, and then seeing his speed difference with the defender, he carries the puck all the way to the net. This is not just a skating clip. There are plenty of very interesting offensive details to break down here. He knows he can't just outspeed the defender, so he's almost inviting the poke check. He places the puck within reach and takes it away at the last second. Because of the 10-2 maneuver, the opponent anticipates a drop pass, and Hutson is banking on that assumption. The opponent goes in a glide, centers his weight, and moves his stick behind, giving Hutson an occasion to separate. And the defenseman is not done manipulating the position. He fakes inside against the next opponent, shifting him that way, and then explodes in the wide lane. He also pulls off a trick against the goalie. Approaching on his backhand, he forces the netminder to respect the threat of a short side shot, but really Hutson wants to open the far side, and he almost pulls off a shot there at the last second. This is just clip number 1, but already Hutson has deceived 3 opponents to create a scoring chance. That's the kind of plays we usually see elite forwards pull off, not defensemen. Hutson is not the most powerful backward skater in the league, but he makes up for some of his limitations with his stick work, timing, angles, and by skating forward at opponents as much as he can. There are 2 ways to look at this play. The first one is focusing on the result. Hutson reads the opponent very well here, the move he's about to make, and cuts it. That's a great play, and on top of it, he also creates the breakout with a lob pass. But it's also clear that Hutson's strategy here, the gap he gives to the opponent, and the way he approaches him, increases the risk of things going wrong. He's giving the opponent a lot of space. He's also ahead of him, and the angle is not perfect. He's presenting his heels to the opponent. That's a signal for the opponent to try and move inside. He attempts to do that, Hutson cuts the play, but had the opponent attempted something different, like a change of speed or a toe drag, a different skating pattern, or a spin move further down the zone, the results may have been very different. That play is a great example of why we see so many different opinions on Hutson's defense. This is a highlight, of course, but also a way of defending that has the potential to expose a team. There's not much of a safety net here. If Hutson misses his timing and read, then it's a potential great scoring chance for the opposition. No matter how smart Hutson is, and he's really smart, things don't always go as you expect in hockey.
Montreal able to clear the zone. There's Sturm again.
There are multiple ways one can manipulate the opposition. You can do it with body language. Hutson does that very well. But he also does it with his skating patterns. Here, he enters the zone in the wide lane, like he's planning to make a drop pass, but then switches his play at the last second and aims for Gallagher across the ice. That first play misses, but the next one is going to connect.
In regulation. Now 2 points back in the playoff chase, trying to reclaim a spot.
Again here, Hutson is not just faking with his posture. He also skates forward, pulls defenders toward him, and increases the effectiveness of his feint by reaching this passing lane. Now, one defender is thinking shot, and the other one is seeing a potential pass across. So he leaves his post and shifts inside, and that opens the shooter on the side. At the start of the season, Mitch Brown and I wrote an article on Hutson's offensive style and how we thought it would evolve during the season. We anticipated that his one-on-one moves would go down and that he would become more of a blue-line shooter and pass-first player, just like Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar before him, as he understood better the risk and rewards of plays in the NHL. He's still pulling off one-on-one moves, but instead of always attacking space and dragging defenders with him, he's now shooting for deflections more often and passing to the first available target. This change in mentality hasn't dropped his production, but he has become a more reliable play driver than before.
The month, although Tampa doesn't play till Tuesday. That's when these 2 teams play the rematch in Montreal Tuesday night. Join us for that one. It's the start of a week-long road trip. Hutson, a little flip over to Caulfield. Cole Caulfield walks off the wall with it. Over to Hutson, floats it to the net. Save Bobrovsky. Suzuki's on the loose puck. Hutson again. Deflected by Losterinen. Puck is free. Now the Canadians are able to get possession right back. Slavkovsky puts it out in front. Caulfield.
In the next two clips, we see Hutson's engagement in the defensive zone, his limitations, and why he's effective despite them as he's going against Maki Samoskevich, one of the best rookies in the league. Samoskevich is not very strong as a player, but he wins inside positioning on Hutson and knocks him back. Hutson doesn't stay down, however, and that's what's so impressive about him. He's always fighting to get back into play. He's the first one up, and he rushes up the ice to give a passing option to his teammate and start a tic-tac-toe play. Even when he's supposed to dump the puck in, Hutson is smart. He didn't make a hard rim around the ice like most would have in this situation. He attracted the defender on himself, and tactically made a kind of chip pass to Slavkovsky in a spot where he could win the puck. Again here, Hutson seems to want to serve or defend the rush while skating forward. His angle is off a bit at first. He ends up catching to the play and denying part of the shot, but it's another example of the lack of leeway here. His route and the way he approaches has to be a lot more precise defending with this technique than when a defender simply absorbs the rush while skating backward. There's more risk involved. He gets knocked to the ice, but again rises back up and goes back to his position. This is what's most admirable about Hutson. He has to work much harder than most to defend, and he does it shift after shift as a rookie, playing upward of 25 minutes a game. His motor is unbelievable. It's really elite in the league already. But ideally, the best defense is the absence of opportunity for the opposition. It's why a player like Goulet, who's quieter in his movements, more rangy, and capable of denying more space, is more effective at that side of the game. He doesn't have to course correct as much. As long as he maintains good positioning, he's effective. Hutson may never have that kind of luxury. His defense will always have to be more high-event, which again means more energy expanded, more variance, more gambles, and more risk. If defense is the absence of opportunity, offense is the exact opposite. Hutson creates so much because he forces a ton of course correction and micro-adjustment in the position's coverage. He moves and moves, drags defenders one way and the other way, and creates a chance. The more movement and rotations he forces, the more breakdowns the position goes through and the more opportunities arise. And now, when a scoring chance appears, he seizes it instantly.
He had to go off the heel of his stick. Hutson again in front, and they score this time! Suzuki gives Montreal a 3-2 lead.
Hutson will always have his limits defensively, especially in the defensive zone. Even in his best performances, they remain pretty clear. As he's forced to make more movements to defend, he will always have to play catch-up more than most, and that may expose him to some feints and passing plays. Bigger and very skilled players like Barkov will be able to protect the puck against him and shake him loose to create scoring chances. Hutson will develop some tricks to win some battles. Like here, he delays his poke check to avoid the stick lift from Barkov, and then he goes around his body to get his stick on the puck the other way. His forward skating or surfing technique will only become better as he refines his timing, and especially when he plays full-time on his regular left side. This is a better example of the technique than in the clips we saw previously. His angle and gap are better, his stick is pushing the opponent toward the board and preventing a cut inside or toward his heels. He can't quite make a stop because he lacks the reach potential, but he contains and forces a delay and a point shot. Hutson has far more strengths than weaknesses, but I would argue that it's those weaknesses that make him interesting. Would Hutson really be as good if he wasn't an unusual 5'9" or 5'10" skater? I don't think so. Tall and fast players usually don't need to develop as much hockey sense to thrive at lower levels. Maybe Hutson wouldn't have figured out how to beat players one-on-one with quick changes of direction, and he might not have become as clever as he is now if he didn't have to adapt to some limitations. So while I don't believe that Hutson will ever become equally as good in all three zones, I think his story is even better if we see him as a player who thrives despite and because of his limitations. What he is to me is a defenseman with an incredible motor. You knock him down, he gets right back up, and he outworks and surprises opponents. His hockey sense is elite, and he is himself elite. Not perfect, but elite in his own unique playstyle. He may not fit everyone's definition of a traditional number one defenseman, but Montreal won't find a more special player for their backhand. He's already the team's core playmaker at the position, and arguably the player with the most impact on the outcome of games. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. If you want more prospect analysis, please check out the news section of Elite Prospects.